Now, here is one of their young stars who's staying here in our country because he's so great that the professors of music at Juilliard here in New York said they must have him here because they wanted to give him some extended courses. Here is young Itzhak Perlman of Israel, and he's just magnificent. Let's have a wonderful welcome for this young boy.
Itzhak Perlman made a sensational television debut at the age of 13 in 1958, when he was introduced to the American public by The Ed Sullivan Show.
I love the way I bow. I love that. Oh, is that my mother? Yes, it is my mother. Oh, I love it. I love it.
Now, that is a magnificent talent, isn't it? And a wonderful little boy. He's 13 years old.
It was more difficult for me to start in a career, in retrospect now, than it should have been. I realized this because I was so in some ways very, very innocent, because the attitudes of people around me were very healthy, namely my parents. They looked at me as a person who was playing the violin, who was supposed to take it very seriously, and I did not like to practice. And they said, "Oh, what do you mean you don't like to practice? You got to practice, you know." And they forced me to practice, and they were very upset if I didn't. And if I didn't play well, it was very upset. And they had absolutely nothing to do with the fact that I had polio and I was walking on crutches and so on. That had nothing to do with it. It was totally very, very natural thing. So that when things didn't go as fast, I was wondering what was wrong. I mean, what was going on? I mean, and it never occurred to me that it may have been the fact that people were not as anxious and as ready to give me a break, because they said, "Oh, well, you know, how will he travel? It's very, very difficult, this and that." So that once I got sort of rolling, as they say, I then, of course, had to listen and read all these criticisms about, the heroism that I've performed. Incredible things, and as he was slowly, with great strain and difficulty, walking on the stage, and then after he just sat down heavily, and with great effort and blah, 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 then he started to play, and it was all forgotten. There were so many reviews of such, and I was very upset about these things. And then, very slowly, with recognition comes natural sort of attitude. They recognized, they were familiar with what I was, with who I was, with what my problems were, and all of a sudden it was all forgotten. Then I said to myself, wait a minute, why should it be forgotten? I should be used as an example to a lot of other people with disabilities to show that I can do something. So I started to push just a little bit, and it took about a year for people to realize that I was available to talk about my problems, now that I've, quote, proved myself that I can play pretty nicely and so on, that I was available to just bring on the message. And the message is basically separate your abilities from your disabilities. And that has been always my message. And it's a very simple message, and people don't realize that they don't follow that message,
Oh, very, very good. All right, Signor Perlman, you are ready to rehearse?
Yes, I think so, yes.
Bueno! Now relax, please. I know you must be a very bit nervous playing violin along with the magnificent voice of the legend himself, Plácido Flamingo.
Well, it's a great honor for me. Thank you.
Of course it is. Now, there will be 3 of us performing.
3? Oh, who's the third?
Oh, I must call him. You, are you ready? Good.
He's going to play with us?
See, he has a very important part. You shall see. Bueno, begin, please.
All right. It's a manual instrument. I mean, basically nothing is done for you. You know, you've got this fiddle, you've got 4 strings, they're tuned like this, and that's it. That's where it stops. And then you have to draw the bow, and you have to draw it, whether it's the kind of what kind of speed you have to draw it, slower, faster, what direction, and so on. I'm just giving you right now my entire shtick when it comes to teaching violin. So what the secret of teaching the violin? Well, it depends really on how fast the bow goes, how slow the bow goes, how much pressure there is, where you put your fingers, and so on. Well, as you can see, it's there's an awful lot to do.
The popular image of the solo violinist was firmly established at the beginning of the 19th century by the great showman and virtuoso Niccolo Paganini. He composed 24 caprices for solo violin, so difficult that in his time only he could play them, but which are now regularly performed as encore pieces.
Number 5 is kind of nice because it's basically a lot of arpeggios. Something about this piece. You know, the way it's written. What I'm doing now is playing spiccato. But the way it's written is that it's written with 3 on one bow, 1 separate, and 4 on one bow. So if I'm going to show it to you slow motion, and I play regular spiccato, it looks like this. Which is up and down with the bow. However, it's written like this. But if you try to do it faster, and nobody does that because, you know, after a while you can go berserk. So you just play it. I'm trying. Let's try. The string crossing is absolutely impossible to do. But again, that's the way it's written. Now, I'm sure that somebody will come and says, well, that's just an editorial marking, and Paganini really didn't do that, but probably did. But this is one of my, sort of standard kind of encore pieces that I play if I do it with orchestra. But of course, now the more you play, if you play Beethoven's concerto, like this, right? It doesn't quite fit afterwards, so I don't play it as often as I used to.
Perlman's outstanding technique developed under the guidance of the great violin teacher Ivan Galamian, who taught at the Juilliard School in New York from 1946 to 1981.
My old teacher, Ivan Galamian, used to talk about vibrato, and he used to have a very thick Russian accent, and he used to say, there are three kinds of vibrato. There's a slow vibrato for slow piece. It goes like this. Then it's a little faster vibrato for faster. It goes like this. And then this very fast vibrato goes like this. Because, well, he had a very slow vibrato. But in any case, vibrato, for me, is one of the least talked about elements in violin playing and most important. Because it makes the music, it's a color. It's a color. You know, it's like when people paint a picture, and you can have, let's say, a painter very skillfully paint a picture, but it's all in one color. And then after a while you say, well, it's very, very nice, you know, but it's boring because it's all in one color. Well, that's what music is all about. Music, a lot of music is about colors. And if you play a vibrato and you vibrate very like this, and you play fortissimo, and if you play pianissimo, you immediately cannot vibrate a lot like this. That means you have to lessen the vibrato. You have to play the ratio of the wobble. Let's say when you play loudly is less than you can have more wobble when you play forte and less wobble when you play piano. It's, you know, I don't want to go into real technical sort of things, but there's an awful lot of things. And you know, let's say at the beginning of the Tchaikovsky violin concerto, you know, so usually, traditionally speaking, you know, it's a Russian piece, it's very romantic, so I'm not vibrating an awful lot now, you know, so, but I can use a little less. But now we haven't even spoken about the speed. Let's say that somebody's extremely nervous and you hear, that's what we call in the terminology a machine gun vibrato. And machine gun vibrato is sometimes very difficult to get rid of. And we prefer the slow wobble vibrato, and you can speed that one up. But to slow it down, very, very difficult. So there's all sorts of things. And in the middle of a phrase, you can change the vibrato. One phrase, and then and a lot of the notes that I've played, if you put them down in slow motion, not to give anybody any ideas, you will hear that the note would have an awful lot of one note would be vibrated in a certain way, and another note would not be vibrated at all, or maybe vibrated a bit less, and so on. So it's it's a question of a variety. Vibrato to music and to violin playing is like cornstarch to Chinese food. You see, if you know that there is cornstarch in that food, something is wrong. It has to be present to help and enhance. And that's what vibrato is all about. Vibrato is a musical tool.
The character of a particular violin can make a considerable difference to a performer. Perlman has recently changed from playing a 17th century Stradivarius to an 18th century Del Gesù, a violin made by the other great Italian instrument maker, Guarneri.
Well, this particular violin is actually reasonably new for me. In other words, this is a Guarneri Del Gesù. And up till very recently, I've been playing on Strad all the time. So I'm now trying this one. Some people don't like the sort of finesse that you have to use in playing a Strad. You know, once you know the instrument and you know the limitation of the instrument, then that's fine. But with a Del Gesù, it's much easier to slam into the instrument. Not as easy to use very fine shades. That you have to try harder. With a Strad, that's where you're on automatic. You can just let go of the pressure of your bow, and you can use all sorts of fine shades and do little things with sounds, and it will respond. While a virtuoso will not respond as easily. But then on the other side of the scope, when you really want to give a lot, the virtuoso is easier to do. You just go and it will respond beautifully. If I go like this in a Strad, the sound may crack. But if I go like this in the virtuoso, so what? It says, so what? Go ahead, give me all you got. And a lot of fiddle players like to always think of themselves as Strad people or virtuoso people. And I find it actually interesting to have the difference between the two instruments and what it does to your playing.
Dorothy DeLay was Galamian's assistant at the Juilliard School and played a different but equally influential part in Perlman's musical development.
No, the combination that I felt was so wonderful is that Galamian told you to do this. And Mr. DeLay always says, what do you want to do? And why do you think you should do that? And I didn't always like that because I like to sort of follow orders. And sometimes, Mr. DeLay would try to make me think. I said, "Oh, just leave me alone," So, but the bottom, the whole basic bottom of the actual technical system was the same. So that was the unifying element there. So that there was never a conflict.
He had incredible facility, natural coordination, natural facility, natural speed. I never heard anyone coordinate and go so fast as he did the first time I heard him. I think what Itzhak wanted to do was to get through it as fast as possible. He was such a bad mood that day.
Come on, I was in a bad mood. I was in a bad mood. I just left Israel, My parents, my mother my friends were all there. What do you think I was going to do? And then I was living in a hotel that was not exactly a 3-star hotel. You know the one hotel you open the door and you can touch the window? That's the hotel. It was terrible. Paganini wrote very well for the violin. I think Bach actually wrote better.
Apart from his violin concertos, Bach wrote 6 sonatas and partitas for unaccompanied violin, which are among the greatest works ever written for the instrument.
The most unusual experience of any violinist is to play the Bach unaccompanied pieces. I think because it's really one of the few times that a violinist gets the opportunity to be totally responsible for what you're doing without, quote, a partner, without an accompanist, without an orchestra, without a pianist, nothing. It's all up to you, you know. And I never forget when I played all of them, I think it was in London several years ago, and the sensation that I had was one of, my God, I'm here on the stage all by myself, all alone, and I'm responsible for all the, you know, the fugues and the inner voices and everything, and it's a luxury that we don't have too much of.
These Bach pieces are very demanding for the violinist, and some of them contain the virtuoso qualities of Paganini.
You know, there's one in the E major. I mean, well, it's not the E major. What is it? Well, whatever it is. It's in D minor, I think. Well, that's something like this, or in the B minor. You know, if that's not a virtuoso kind of type music, then nothing is.
Although Perlman has played these Bach pieces for many years, he has still not recorded them.
You know, all of us, you know, we have such awe for this music, you know, from Bach. But I want to make sure that any record, and that is a record of what you feel about a piece, is something that is fairly representative of what, you know, and fairly, that it would last more than about 2 hours yeah, in other words, that it would last, that I would not say the next day, gee, today I'm going to do it differently. You know, and that's basically what I'm hoping. So I'm going to start recording them right now. You know, I've had periods in which I've been playing them a lot, and then I've let them rest, and so on and so forth. And I've tried to record them already before, and I didn't like it. It was one of those exactly things. In other words, I played them, and then I listened to the playback, and I already said, well, today I'll do it differently, you know. And I tried to avoid doing that. So, but I think it's about time to at least do a present representation of what I feel about the pieces, and maybe in 5 years do another one. Maybe in 5 years do another one. when I don't play it, I go shopping. You know, sometimes we find ourselves going on vacation and I find the local supermarket and I go shopping. Oh, God, this is terrible. I just went through a red light. Wonderful, really good. Okay. Now you want to see, these are the most fantastic chocolate croissants you've ever, you know, this is, you know, I mean, it's like melting in your mouth. If you're nice, I'll let you have one. Now, this is the, so that this is all baked stuff. You can see, you know, challahs and stuff like this. Over here you got the, I don't believe I'm making a commercial for you guys. What is this?
Are you really?
You know, I think I'm going to stop talking.
You getting paid for it?
No, that's the thing, you know. Very funny. Oh, I know what we need.
What do you need?
That braised artichoke and leeks. That is incredible. We gotta get that. First, let me try this thing. Because wouldn't that be nice? You have a seafood thing.
He's like a horse.
Listen, you can cut. You know, this is film that can cut you out. You have any good smoked salmon today?
Mr. Perlman, for you, I always have the best.
Okay.
Always.
For me, you see that there's only one smoked salmon in this whole store that's the best news for me. The rest is not very good.
Perlman, like many of this century's most famous violinists, comes from an Eastern European Jewish tradition. The outstanding figure in this tradition is Jascha Heifetz, and he has had a strong effect on Perlman's playing.
I think that Heifetz has had an effect on everybody's playing. If they'll tell you no, they'll be not really telling you the exact truth, one way or another.
I mean,
he has had the effect. He's always the first person in every violinist's listening career to be recognized. You know, he's so individual that the minute you hear Heifetz, you know very, very quickly you know that it's Jascha. Heifetz was one of the great colorists of all time. The sound, the tone that he produces is like no other, truly like no other. It's funny, you know, a violin, sometimes, you know, you can hear 2, 3, 4 violinists play, and even though it's different, there's still some similarities. When Heifetz plays, there are no similarities. I mean, it's one way of playing. Nobody else plays that way, and if anybody plays the same way, they're trying to imitate, and it's no good. And so that's one thing. And of course, the technical brilliance is amazing, and the sheer. For me, the only way I can describe his playing is like molten lava. It is so hot. He's such a hot fiddle player.
Another but very different influence is the music of the Austrian composer and violinist Fritz Kreisler, which Perlman has championed.
Well, I've been playing a lot of Kreisler. Kreisler is a very lovely, I mean, a word to use music is very nice, it's very lovely, it's very intimate. Just like the kind of a violinist that he was. I always felt that Kreisler, for me, was just a very intimate, lovely, beautiful violinist, you know, but I somehow felt that he was my room fiddle player. I always felt that to hear Kreisler play that's Kreisler for me. But that, which is the Brahms concerto, when he played it, I felt that's Yasha's territory. Not that Kreisler played it beautifully, but I just felt that it was almost, he was too nice for this. He was, you know, I want him in the room, you know, I want to listen to him, you know, I want to have a little, you know, a little coffee, you know, and a little sweets and listen to this beautiful, beautiful playing. But I think that it's in the writing too. You know, I think that the writing is always very sort of, it has a kind of a lovely, intimate kind of feeling. Even the more virtuoso pieces. You know, again, this is without piano, and this is like tambourine chinois, which is a little. Which is, but the middle section. It's like sitting in a cafe house in Vienna and listening to a fiddle player play. You know, he could never get away from that. And so I've been, you know, I've been playing an awful lot of his stuff.
Although Perlman's playing and personality are far from ordinary, he admits to being rather conservative when asked about his favorite music.
You know, it's always the obvious people that appeal to me. Beethoven always, in some ways, makes your hair stand, I suppose. On an emotional level, I suppose in some ways Brahms does it to me. On a purely emotional level. You want to call it a cheap emotional level, you know, but Brahms chamber music, when I play it, it's quite phenomenal. I mean, it does something for me. But, you know, everybody has a different chemical makeup in your ear or whatever it is. And on that level, Brahms is on an emotional level, Brahms is it. And obviously, there are many pieces that I play that I just adore. You know, one of my favorite concertos is a Stravinsky concerto, which I just absolutely love. And I even like the Elgar. And I didn't used to, but I really seriously grew to love the concerto. Extremely lucky to have music as my livelihood, but very, very important to me in the long run is family.
Early this year, over 5,000 invitations went out to schools and music teachers. I mean, it's like a regular.
I do an awful lot of planning around my kids' vacation. And basically, I plan my concerts around them.
Did you get it?
Yeah,
I got it.
Fantastic. Look at this. It's difficult, I must say. It is very difficult.
Are these like different?
When an artist basically deals with a lot of travel, if you're not careful, the family can go by the wayside, and you pay for it. If you don't feel that you pay for it, then you're a strange person, as far as I'm concerned. Very strongly, the music is a very important part of general education, and my kids they listen to music at the house. They can't help it. You don't want to involve your children too much and lose the perspective of who is enthusiastic around here. Is it I who am enthusiastic and am forcing you to be enthusiastic along, or is it your own enthusiasm? And because I'm a musician does not mean that my children have to all be involved in music. My daughter is a pianist, but when you ask her what she's going to do when she grows up, she says, well, gee, I don't know. Gee, maybe I'll be an English teacher, or maybe I'll play the piano. I like that.
Itzhak Perlman has worked hard to encourage handicapped people, and just as important, he feels, to change attitudes towards them.
Yes, I find a great deal of dissatisfaction with regards to... You see, the world basically is built for people who have absolutely no problems whatsoever, right? A bunch of supermen. It's built that way from many, many points of view, particularly architecturally. Attitudes are a totally different problem. Most people do not feel comfortable facing anybody who is disabled in one way or another. People don't feel comfortable, whether it's discomfort, whether it's fear, whether it's the lack of the lack of knowledge of the unknown. It's a whole combination of things. But so we have here two main problems that I find. The first problem is the attitude, and from that problem, the attitudinal barriers, as I would like to call it, stems all the other problems. I've been very, very active in talking against barriers in buildings and places of work. Places, public places, whether it's museums, concert halls, etc., etc. And I find that this really stems from the lack of experience of people in the proper positions, namely, let's say, architects, people who build buildings, people who are supposed to know something about it. People don't think about a person in a wheelchair as much as they should in certain ways. In other words, it's very easy if it's all being put, if there is a system already. I'm just trying to think about airports, for example. I was thinking about airports because my experience is, basically airports, concert halls, hotels. That's my experience in performing and traveling, touring, and so on. And it's sometimes you in certain airports. I always like to tell this story that in some airports you ask for a wheelchair to meet you at the plane. It doesn't arrive. You have to wait. I've been known to make very good friends with people who are cleaning the planes after all the passengers and the pilots and the stewardesses are already off the plane, and I have to still wait, and so on and so forth. That's one one part of the spectrum, and then the other one is that they come to you with a huge ambulance and 3 attendants and a nurse, and you become a non-person for the next half an hour. They take away your passport, let's say if you're traveling in Europe, and so on. They take away your passport, they put you in the ambulance, the windows in the ambulance are all fogged up so that, heaven forbid, anybody could see somebody is sick, and you're sitting there, and then they take you to the clinic, there. You wait here, take the passport, everything is done, and voila, you're out, but after half an hour of being a non-person. And that's another kind of attitude thing, and that's very easy, that way they put you in the mold of being a sick person, and then there's no problem. Just imagine now, you are a large concert hall, and I have just finished a magnificent performance. But it was so good and so inspiring. It was, and the audience wanted more. And I decided not to play. However, they keep calling you on the stage back and forth and back and forth. So I said, okay, I'll do something. And then I announced in a big, loud voice, Prelude from the E major, is it E major? Partita for unaccompanied violin by Bach. Comes the audience. Okay. I said, no, that's not the one. You'll hear it right now. And then you start playing. And of course, you're not nervous anymore because you've already played a big piece. Now you have to imagine the little droplets of sweat and perspiration right here that probably fall on the violin by the time you finish and will form a permanent stain on the lovely varnish. With all that in mind,
Thank you.